Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of Film and TV Review.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Film and TV Review.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see Film and TV Review.com.
Hello there, and welcome to our latest monthly movie and TV roundup on Film and TV Review. I'm joined by my regulars today, Alfonso, James, and Richard, and I'll ask them their view on what they've caught their eye this last month. Today we'll talk about Megalopolis, Beetlejuice 2, The Substance, Speak No Evil, Agatha All Along, The Pen Ring, Kaos, and maybe a few others. So let's get straight onto it. We'll start with Megalopolis, which is a long cherished project of Francis Ford Coppola, and I think largely self-funded as well. Richard, you saw Megalopolis. Could you tell us, is it worth the wait?
So yeah, I'm one of the few who've seen it, apparently. One of the very few. Because unfortunately it doesn't look like good at the box office. So yeah, Megalopolis, the latest Francis Ford Coppola movie. First of all, I would say that if you have a Francis Ford Coppola release in a movie theater, you have to see it if you are a moviegoer. I'm surprised actually that the curiosity of it it doesn't actually push more people actually to see it, just to see what he has done this time. A guy like this, I mean, he's a legend. You mentioned actually that it is a project that is kind of important to him because, for what I understand, is like in a way 30 years in the making. He had these ideas in the 70s, 80s, and well, when you look at the movie, and I'm gonna as you said, mention premises, you understand actually how difficult it must be to create such a movie. Well, nowadays, because money is difficult to find for movies in movie theaters, but also because, well, it's a very strange movie, so let's face it. Remember, for example, that someone from his same generation, Martin Scorsese, last time he released the movie, he actually had to go to Netflix to have someone actually to be to produce and release his movie. So Megalopolis, Megalopolis. So, in a few words, Megalopolis, in a way, is Francis Ford Coppola's take on the possible fall of our civilization, the future fall of our way of life and our society, and is trying to kind of warn us of this future fall of our society by showing us an alternative world where a new Roman Empire is literally happening in the 21st or 22nd century. And this kind of Roman Empire is just actually, just very anchored in the 21st century. And you have this Roman wealthy and powerful family who controls everything. And they don't know literally how to please the people. They just care about their own wealth and their whole happiness. And you have different characters within this family, played by very kind of famous actors and actresses. And it's interesting because those family members. So it's not like a real new Rome. It's like actually if Rome was in the 21st century, because the main characters' names are characters from Rome back in the day. You have Cicero, you have Crassus, played by John Voight, for example. Cicero is played by, if I'm not mistaken, by Giancarlo Esposito. Well, I'm not going to talk about his story because that's not an interesting point. But in a way, it's kind of a fight for power, a kind of a Game of Thrones style. But no, I'm joking. A fight of power between these people. John Voight is the most powerful. He's the emperor, let's say. Cicero is the mayor of New York City. I'm trying to make it simple. So he has the power of politics in his hands. You have Shia LaBeouf, who is either the nephew or the grandson of John Voight and possible heir to the empire. Possible heir to the empire. And on the other hand, you have his cousin, played by Adam Driver, probably the main character of all, who plays kind of the smart one, kind of a scientist and the brain of the family, and also kind of a loner. He plays Caesar. They call it Caesar Catalina, but you can think he's probably the Caesar version of the movie. And he's an architect. He has ideas, very positive ideas for the future of the society of this world, of Megalopolis, of this new Rome. He's very awful, and he can control time. I don't know why, because he can literally control time. And with this ability, he wants actually to recreate a new society, I guess, fairer and more interesting for the new generation to come. But he's the only one who literally you can feel has this ambition. And it's kind of a struggle between these people to see because Shia LaBeouf is a kind of the bad guy who just wants to become the new John Voight, just want to become a new emperor. And he has no regards to any rules or any values or any principles. But so that's kind of the story in a nutshell. This struggles between these people. Now, visually, it's kind of stunning, to be honest, but it looks like an experimental movie most of the time. The visuals are, you're wondering what the hell is going on. But it's beautiful at the same time. It's kind of chaotic, kind of messy how the story is told as well. You're wondering, what am I watching sometimes? What are they talking about? But then I'm guessing that with a second viewing, you will understand that there is a lot of depth in the things that you missed. That's my hope anyway. It made me think strongly about Cloud Atlas. If you remember this movie by the Wachowskis back in the day, which I enjoyed, but to be fair, I enjoyed it overall, but on first viewing, I'm not sure I understood everything. But it didn't stop me from enjoying it. And that's kind of the feeling that I had after watching Megalopolis, is that it's very ambitious, and I respect the work. I can't imagine actually how much work it was going on behind the scenes, behind the camera for the cast, but for Francis Ford Coppola himself. You understand the overall what he's trying to do, which I really like as well, the messages that he's trying to push on the screen. And especially nowadays, it's very important, I think, to have that kind of message because the world is a bit messed up as well, our own world. So yeah, kind of like Cloud Atlas, where you have like a very big choral cast of very big names playing very different things from the thing that you know them from. And all of them storylines kind of intertwined and very beautiful scenes visually, etc. Yeah, definitely Cloud Atlas feeling. And also a movie that I mentioned to you guys called Immortel ad Vitam, which was an adaptation of a French graphic novel by Enki Bilal, that was released in the 2000s, 2004, I think. Also about a dystopian future where different stories about gods and mutants and also anarchists who are actually fighting each other for the power. Very beautiful movie, very experimental movie. Yeah, in the end, yeah, I just want to say that, yeah, although it is very experimental and nowadays numbers, box office, and money is what matters, it's very risky, very difficult. Obviously, it's very strange choice. Not strange choice, not strange. It's balls. It took a risk to actually to have this movie released in movie theater because there's a good chance that they're gonna lose money out of it. But I respect the effort a lot, to be honest. In that case, this is what Coppola already had a career behind him, so he kind of doesn't care. But if it's a box office disaster, and perhaps in the future, and not perhaps, but I'm pretty sure that in the future this one will become like a cult movie, but it's going to be a miss in movie theaters. But 5-10 years down the road, people will love buying DVDs and talk about it, etc. And yeah, you let's say that, yeah, I think that, yeah, people will talk about them in next decades, yeah, for sure, because it is a really interesting movie to talk about.
Okay. Thanks, Richard. Speaking of a long gestation, we have something that we might have seen before, but it's more of a long awaited sequel, which sees the return of Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder in his very film from the 80s, but very cult favorite, definitely. It's Beetlejuice, The Ghost with the Most. Richard and James, you both saw this, and that was in cinemas just a few weeks ago. Was it everything that you hoped it would be, or did something
so
say buried?
In all fairness, and I will let James respond to this. In all fairness, and I have to be honest, and I said I will be honest, it's the first time in my life when I watched a movie. So first of all, it's not that I was expecting a masterpiece, but on that part, fortunately, yeah, it wasn't a masterpiece for sure. So it's the first time in my life that I fell asleep for 10 minutes in a movie theater. Sometimes I do close my eyes when I'm tired, but taking a nap like this says something. We're going to talk later about Speak No Evil, which was perhaps one of the funniest movie experience of this year for me. Beetlejuice 2 was probably one of the worst movie experiences for me in a movie theater. I mean, yeah, is there a point of talking about the story, honestly? It's like just it feels convenience. Everything feels extremely convenience. It's just how to write a thing in 5 seconds, but nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to remember after leaving the movie theater. So we can have Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder in costumes once again 30 years later. That's how I felt this movie was about. Just to have Michael Keaton saying these funny lines of late 80s, have Winona Ryder dressed up as whatever the name of the character is, and that's it. That's the only reason this movie exists. It is, unfortunately, it is, for me, it's the symbol. If there is one movie that I remember as a symbol of everything that is wrong with Hollywood in the last 5 to 10 years about nostalgic movies, is that let's try to find an IP of the 70s, 80s, 90s, and let's do a sequel that nobody asked for and nobody was like waiting for, and I'm gonna sell it like actually it's this huge thing that everybody like. I'm pretty sure that they try to push you in your minds, like actually like a brainwash to tell you, yes, you needed this. You've been waiting for this for 30 years. No, you didn't. No, nobody cared. Nobody left the movie theater or watched the DVD or VHS of Beetlejuice 1 in 1989 or later on. I watched Beetlejuice in the 90s for myself when I was a kid. I never expected after watching this thing with the movie ending credits say, wow, I really want to see a sequel for this. No. And that's not a bad thing, by the way. I think that's the problem nowadays of studios in Hollywood, thinking that it's a bad thing to have an ending, to have actually a proper ending of a movie. It's possible. You can have an ending. You can say, okay, it's done, dusted, and I enjoyed it. You can move on to something else. No, nowadays you have to hire people who are in their 60s or 70s and put them on the screen for the character they played 30, 40 years before. And people say, I'm happy to see Michael Keaton Beetlejuice. Like, actually, it's a big thing for him. I say, okay, for him, but for me, what do I care? Like, I'm gonna applaud and say, what great stuff. Well done, Michael Keaton. I'm not paying money to go to the movie theater just to be happy for actors who actually play the characters they loved. I mean, I just want to see a movie, and there is nothing in this movie. There is nothing interesting. The story is boring. The story is just, as I said, is written on by 5 seconds by kids. The CGI are terrible. It is the worst movie CGI wise or production design wise by Tim Burton, in my opinion. And Tim Burton is known for this, actually, to try to create something interesting, at least visually, or the vibe, etc. The vibe was like a fan made movie by someone who likes Tim Burton. And yeah, so yeah, obviously I didn't like it.
That was a bit of a disappointing. I was wondering what to expect, 'cause I haven't seen it. I'm thinking, oh, that's one to catch, especially as we approach Halloween. James, are you of the same opinion? Or
Well, I'm wondering if Richard fell asleep in the section where James Cameron turns up and had a cameo. Did you fall asleep in that bit?
No, I didn't see James Cameron. Probably, yeah, he was doing while I was asleep. Yeah.
That's a joke, by the way, Alfonso. Alfonso's like, I can't believe he's ruined that bit with Jack. That doesn't exist. Do you know what? I mean, it's interesting hearing what you say about it, because everything you say is what I feel about IP movies, really, and belated sequels. And when I saw when I heard they were doing this, actually, so when I heard they were I was like, why are they doing this? I don't care. I don't care. And then when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh, it might be okay. And although I completely agree, like, I didn't need this film, certainly not my favorite film of the year. Like, I think that criticism is true of a lot of belated sequels. Why are we doing this now? Why are we going back at this point, like 35 years later? In the case of this, I thought it was pretty good for what it was. I mean, the original is like 1988 and very different landscape then of like effect. So it's quite it puts sort of Tim Burton and Michael Keaton on the map, really, and just to set the context of when it was out. And it was, I suppose it was almost like a live action cartoon at the time. So there was things that were very heightened, which you'd not particularly maybe seen in a movie where they would use effects to do certain things, which they can obviously do quite easily. I rewatched the original probably for the first time since the early 90s in preparation for this. And there were certain things in it, although I think it's really good. It's probably Michael Keaton's sort of, in a way, more of a better known role than Batman, like the one that sort of put him on the map. And it's a very unique performance of his, I think. A lot of his other performances, he's doing a similar kind of thing. There were some things in the 88 movie which are very dated now in like a bad way. So Beetlejuice, who is a bioexorcist, is a little bit, he's sort of he's making unwanted advances towards Gina Davis throughout a lot of the film. He's trying to marry Winona Ryder at a point where she's very young. Obviously, the age gap is the same in this new movie, but with her being a lot older and you get a similar sort of plot line, it feels less problematic than it does when you watch the original. So there's some stuff there that I was like, oh, this doesn't feel great now. And obviously that stuff isn't in the new movie. So I kind of appreciated that. I think to the CG, there's some moments where there's some sort of sandworms in the original film that appear here. They're not from Dune. They are their own Tim Burton sandworms. But actually, when they went into that, I was like, oh no, it's going to look weird because they're all going to be perfect CG now. And that's not what they look like in the original. And actually, they deliberately make them look like stop motion animation, which I don't think they probably are. They are probably done through CG. But I kind of appreciated that they tried to give it that retro aesthetic to it. So you now get the Dietz family. Winona Ryder's a little bit older, obviously, because it's 35 years ago, and she's got a daughter played by Jenna Ortega, and there's various plot lines going around them. Some of them are repeats. I appreciate as well what Andrew said in the chat, and I think a few people have said this, like Willem Dafoe's in this as like a dead movie star cop who's a cop in the afterlife. That now, although that doesn't necessarily need to be in there, it's something that's a little bit different from the original, and it didn't feel like it stepped too much on the toes of the main plot. It didn't feel too crowded. But maybe all this stuff is a low bar because there's been so many really bad sequels for me. So I watched this and I thought it was quite fun. It definitely made me laugh. I thought there was some moments. So it's got a 12A certificate in the UK, and there's particularly at the end a sequence which I'm not really sure. I don't know what the BBFC are thinking these days with their certificates, to be honest. But there's a sequence at the end which does not really seem to be 12A
I must
sequence.
have
It's
missed
definitely
it.
okay. So there's a sequence. There's a particularly gory sequence involved. I mean, it's sort of a comic sequence, so there's a lot of black comedy, but it felt a little bit out there. But I mean, maybe this is when I think about like Ghostbusters, the Frozen, I almost call it Frozen Planet, then Frozen Empire, or whatever I can't think what the
Yeah,
new
yeah,
one
yeah.
was, which didn't.
Yeah, you know what? Good example. Kind of the same
Well,
generation.
that's to be fair, that's my worst film of the year. Like,
Yeah.
by
But
a significant way, because
that being said, the one just before Ghostbusters, the one with Paul Rudd, etc. The first one, I
Afterlife,
don't remember, Afterlife, whatever.
yeah.
Actually, that movie was better than Beetlejuice 2, in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely disagree with that. I think
Because at least the
Afterlife's
last
pretty
part,
good.
the last 15 minutes of this Ghostbusters Afterlife get me to tears with the old cast. This one, I didn't feel anything.
See, I think that's where Afterlife falls apart for me because it's kind of it's quite good up until that. I mean, it's fine, but it's sort of out. It feels tacked on. That I spoke about this with Jason. Like, I think it's a good movie, Afterlife, but it's not Ghostbusters because it's not funny for a start, and it's kind of its own thing. It's like a love letter, and then it feels like it is a new beginning, but then it goes into complete nostalgia at the end. It kind of just about works though, and it is what it is. In the case of Frozen Planet, whatever it's called.
I haven't seen.
The trailer looked amazing, and you watch the film, and it's just a bunch of stuff, and there's no. And also, I think there's a review on Letterboxd that says there's 217 characters in this film, and you go, yeah, that's the problem. There's so many characters, they needed to cull some and just follow two plot lines, maybe not 57 plots because you can't cover it. In this, it's a bit of a retread. I don't know how much they needed to do it, but it was kind of fun in that kind of Scooby Doo type way. And it's definitely got the fun that I think the newer Ghostbusters films missed. Is it my favorite film of the year? No. Would I watch it again? Yeah, maybe. And I didn't fall asleep, but I had two coffees.
Yeah.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, but that might be the recommendation for everyone listening, Jason. Drink coffees before watching Beetlejuice 2.
Well, can I say as well?
If you want
I
to,
used to believe that for me, I'm someone who fell asleep in Mission Impossible Fallout and told everyone it was terrible,
Okay.
and then I walked out of the film and realized nobody in the whole world thought that film was terrible, and I had to accept that I was very tired and I shouldn't have gone to the cinema. Now, I'm not saying that's what's happened with you, but I have learned my lesson.
It's
Don't
possible.
go to the cinema
No,
when you're tired.
it's possible because I can see that actually very good reviews about this movie. It's possible that I was tired, but this
Yeah,
movie,
and I tell you what, the one that I really kicked myself for, but there was only one showing, is Godzilla Minus One. Amazing movie, and I was fighting the urge to go to sleep, not because of the movie, but I was very tired. So I try not to go as a middle-aged man now to watch these films. But yeah, it is what it is. The only other thing with Beetlejuice 2 is that they have this really sort of odd thing where they say they come up with a reason why Gina Davis isn't in the film. And you think that they found early on, they say, oh, they found a loophole to get out of that house. Why didn't they just say that the Deets moved house and that Gina Davis is still in the old house? I don't get it.
yeah,
But
it's true.
okay. Well, all right then. Maybe Richard, maybe you should rewatch it and then miss those phenomenal 10 minutes. That maybe would, your opinion.
Yeah,
I can't believe you missed the bit with Vin Diesel in it. That was the
yeah,
best
of
bit.
course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless these 10 minutes are like Citizen Kane mixed with Casablanca, I'm not sure it's gonna save the movie.
Well, we'll never know, probably. All right. Well, on the kind of like darker movies that seem to have been coming out recently in the last few weeks, we have the film The Substance, which is Demi Moore coming front and center, big, huge star back in the day, and I think tackling the issue of aging, warning about youth and our obsession with it. Alfonso, what is The Substance?
It's wild. It's savage. It is, I don't know. It's like a prank to me. It starts like I guess that Demi Moore, yeah, she looks fantastic in the film. I mean, she starts, yeah. So she is having, yeah, not the same success. They want to replace her, as she's all for that kind of program that she's doing. And Dennis Quaid is in the movie, and he wants her out. So there's this substance that can do things for you to be, or to bring you to your life. Let's say, I won't say more. And but there's a catch. Well, there's a catch. It's like Gremlins. You need to do certain things, or things will go wrong. And well, to no one's surprise, things go crazily wrong. Well, I don't know. I don't know how to say it. It's you gotta see it for yourself. I will just say that it's not for sensitive stomachs, or I don't know. You just need to know that it's people. Yeah, it's feminist. It's a French filmmaker. It's, by the way, a working title production, which you wouldn't expect. Um, and um, and just at some point, you just try to make sense of the whole thing, which does make sense more or less, but it's more like cathartic, I would say. In the end, it is more like, okay, I'm here, I'll just go with it. And well, what can I say? Yeah, I mean, if you want to go, if you Demi Moore was, can I say that she was quite adventurous, at least taking this picture. Even Margaret Qualley, which is also one of the protagonists, is very adventurous as well. They like really to get into the mud and play. Like they both have. You really have to be playful in your movies, choosing your movies and your directors to be in this one. And if you are playful as a spectator, as a viewer, you'll get your fun.
Intriguing, James. This is worth a watch. It's very good one.
Yeah, 100%. So at the moment, I think this is my second favorite film of the year, and it's certainly one of my favorite horrors of the decade. You know, if not my favorite horror of the decade. So it is. Yeah, I was smiling a lot through what Alfonso said, because the other thing with some horrors, that they're quite horrors can be quite traumatic sometimes. And I'm not saying there isn't any traumatic stuff in this one, but I think overall it feels fun. Like it feels like the audience are in for the ride, you know, on the ride on it. I was really smiling, Alfonso, when you said about Gremlins, because I thought that, and I haven't said it to anyone, that Gremlins has 3 rules, doesn't it? You don't feed them after midnight. You don't, and this very much has the same thing. So Demi Moore is given slipped a basically sort of this thing of, if you take this thing, these are the conditions, and that it's kind of like they put that very early on, and you kind of go, right, this is the framework that they have to work with. The film starts with, so she's sort of an aerobics type instructor on TV, like Jane Fonda, I suppose, or somebody, or Mr. Motivator in the UK. And she very early on has a meeting with an agent who says, well, he sort of says, when you get to 50, everything stops, right? Now, if that character, I believe that character's 50 as we watch the film. Demi Moore is 61. She looks absolutely fantastic. But I think that is another sort of smaller element of why the film really works, is because she's putting herself out there. She's concerned about getting old. She looks fantastic. I'd bite my right arm off to look as good as Demi Moore does at this stage in her life. But the character is so insecure, and there's so much stuff in this. I think the thing that's genius about this film is, like we've talked about things like The Boys before. If you just want something that is a gory body horror, which is kind of what the film is, the trailers sort of indicate that's where this is going, and it does. And that's that thing of, I can say that it's not a spoiler because you need to see this to really experience it, you know, to sort of see it. But if you want to watch it on that level, it's fine. But there is lots of stuff in it about aging. There is lots of stuff in it about parent-child resentment. I think there's lots of stuff about women's beauty expectations. There's stuff about addiction, body dysmorphia. There's stuff about parasitic agents in the entertainment industry, and maybe also the need for approval. that there's sort of a subplot involving a guy that Demi Moore went to school with, and it's not in there much, but when it is, I think that's quite interesting when I watched it a second time. And when you said, Alfonso, that towards the end, you sort of go with it, I think the film is more allegorical and it knows that. And I think the audience know that is at the end, if you're trying to make sense exactly of what happens at the end, you're not going to get it. And I don't think that's the point by the end of the film. The point of the film is the point that the film is trying to make. And it does it in the most grotesque, over the top, fun way. It's really well shot. It's got an amazing soundtrack of I've not heard such a pumping techno score since Challenger. It's like the Eric Prydz Call on Me video directed by David Cronenberg. It's crazy, and it's one of the best films of the year in my opinion.
Wow, that is.
But other opinions are available. Someone else might hate it. Don't show it to your parents; they probably won't like it.
Okay, actually looking forward to this as we kind of get towards Halloween season. It's nice to have these to come back to. If you don't catch it on the cinema, if it's gone by then. But good word of mouth on that from everyone over here. So thank you. Oh, good, that's confirmed. Okay, another title that has a more of a dark twist to it, let's say, is a remake of I think a thriller. I think it came from, I'm not sure where, but it's actually quite a recent remake, and that is Speak No Evil. It's with James McAvoy. From what I understand, it feels like from the trailer, it's like a Airbnb exchange or visit that's all gone wrong. But it's let's see, you, Richard, James, Alfonso.
I don't know if Richard knows that we're back. Does he know we're back?
Oh, I see. Well, anyway, yes, we're back with.
We're just waiting for him to unmute. Should we put something in the chat?
But yes, anyway.
Because he didn't want us to spoil The Substance.
No, it's just.
We didn't like The Substance, Richard. We hated it, by the way. Listen.
No. For what I understand, it's a good movie, but unfortunately, yeah, I don't know why there's 6 weeks difference. So, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Right. Another title with a darker bent to it is a recent remake called Speak No Evil. That's James McAvoy, from what I understand. I think this is seems like a holiday gone wrong or a home exchange gone wrong from the trailers, but it looks very intriguing. James, you were one of the regulars who saw this. Just explain what it is and what it's. I understand it is a remake, but
yeah, so it's a Danish film, but in English language, from only 2 years ago, 2022, and tells the story of a couple on holiday. They meet another couple, and the said couple say, "Hey, why don't you come and stay with us?" And they don't think anything of it. They think it's just an empty invitation. When they get home, there is a postcard inviting them to come and stay. And they go, "Hey, why don't we just go and do that? We don't really know these people very well, but why not take a chance and just go and stay with these people?" And then this couple that seem really cool, as they stay, things start to get more and more awkward as they stay there. That's probably as much as I can say without ruining the plot. But the original is definitely more of a sort of out and out horror, and I think probably leaves you at the end slightly traumatized. This remake feels to me much more like a thriller, and it pretty closely follows the original in the first 2 acts. But for me, I think it's strongest in the third act when it sort of deviates it goes in a completely different direction to the original film. And the other thing that I think really sets it apart is there's definitely a sense of it being underplayed in the original, and you're not really sure of the guy that they've gone to stay with, what his intentions are so much. In this, James McAvoy is having a lot of fun, and he turns in a really fun performance, and that kind of dark humor really makes you come out of the film feeling less traumatized by the end, I think, even though it's definitely got a dark ending, different ending, but dark ending. But that kind of camp fun that he has, there's the gif that I keep posting in the chat of him doing that kind of crazed smile. And we know he does this role very well in Split, in Filth, and he finds a different sort of twist on it here. So you've got in this remake, it's from Blumhouse, and you've got Mackenzie Davis from Terminator Dark Fate. She's very good in it. There's also some differences in that in the original, the wife is of a similar age to the husband. In fact, I think the actors in the Danish version are married in real life. In this version, it's Ashlyn Franciossi, and there's all I'm going to say is there's some ambiguity around her character in this film, which they really have a lot of. It gives it another layer that isn't there in the original film. So it's definitely dark. It's very tense and plays on social anxieties and things like that. But it works. It's from the director of Eden Lake as well. But yeah, it works as a really fun thriller, and it's got the most ridiculous song choice in one point. But they know they're doing it. And they play it as the credits go up. And I've seen it a few times now, and I I I did think, what is the point in remaking this film just 2 years after, especially if it's in English language? And they justify it. They're both really good films. They're both worth a watch.
Quickly, Richard and Alfonso, you kind of like
Yeah.
with
Well,
that, I'm guessing.
James says everything. Yeah, if it's a thriller, I never laughed that much if watching a thriller in my life. Then, but it's true. It's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a thriller. But and when I say I laugh, it sounds actually that it's a bad thing. No, it's actually a good sign because of the premises that James mentioned. There are a lot of moments in the movie that kind of are hilarious when you think about it. Because for the 2/3 of the movie, you kind of, first of all, you kind of don't know where this very nice family, where they are and what kind of people they have met. And you are always on the edge of your seat in a way, to wondering when James McAvoy character will go crazy, because he feels always on the edge of, I don't know. I'm not. Obviously, he's not on drugs, but but he's such a good actor that he looks like actually that he is always kind of like this, like kind of crazy, kind of actually, yeah, on steroids, whatever. And he plays it so well that in a way he is scary even when he's trying to be a nice guy. But as James mentioned, he and his wife does things sometimes that made the whole movie theater was laughing. There's, for example, and I won't spoil it, but there is a scene in a restaurant that they won't go. It's a very awkward scene that made me laugh so much. Anyway, yeah, and yeah, the song choice, etc. And yeah, the third act is, yeah, it kind of answers all the questions, etc., that you might have for yourself, and it goes straight to a real thriller, let's say. But yeah, it's very kind of, yeah, crazy line between funny and scary. And although I didn't like the actor who plays the father of the kind of, let's call it, the nice family, I thought it was either underused or it was just a very weak character. And Mackenzie Davis plays a very believable mother who reacts like a real mother, and who actually plays a real person, a real human being. He, on the contrary, this husband, I don't know. I'm not saying actually that I would have been a different guy facing this situation, but at least I would react in a different way. He's very stupid, very dumb, very naive, and obviously not very likable in the end. But yeah, it's a really nice experience to watch this movie, to be honest. Will you be scared? Perhaps, especially in the third act, perhaps. But will you have fun and enjoy yourself watching actually these kind of two families clashing? And yes, definitely, I think you will enjoy yourself. Yeah.
Man, quickly, Alfonso, you saw this. Did you see the original, Alfonso, or have you?
No, I didn't see the original. Just saw this one, and I thought it was. I mean, I was tense for different reasons the whole film, because it's really plays with your social anxieties of meeting new people, a new couple. If I like them, if I don't, they go together with their respective kids. I don't know. It works perfectly as that movie. Just like meeting new people and things that can go, well, wrong, or more wrong or less wrong, because you have different styles of parenting, you have different styles of things. You see things that are going not your way, and these are not really people that we want to stay with. It, as that kind of movie, it just plays perfectly. So when it turns into more, it's just like, well, yeah, that's also good. So yeah, it's very entertaining the whole way through.
It's good to hear. Right. Well, keeping with more spooky kind of like choices now, it seem to be coming out of the woodwork, but is a follow up or rather a spin off of a Marvel show that was WandaVision, and throughout that was a bit of spoilers. The kind of main villain of that piece was Agatha, which was a kind of a witch. So this new series on Disney is Agatha All Along. I think the tale of a witch who's lost her coven and trying to regain it. Alfonso, you did see this.
Yes.
Is it as good or as bad as they say from the inline channel?
Well, it's a good series for Halloween family style. So it's basically the play that Disney Plus has for Halloween and for the families, and of course it makes sense. It's Marvel, and well, Catherine Hahn, the rest of the cast, they are very likable. It has Joe Loke from Heartstopper, Aubrey Plaza, Pat Lupone, Derajo Rapp, Cecile Samara, Ali Ham. It's a diverse cast, mostly women and one teenager that go together on an adventure. And so far, the episodes that have been released are then going into this path of finding new obstacles in each episode, I guess. And there were a little bit of a scary thing. I don't know if it's not very scary. There are some scary scenes at some point. There are mysteries that will be solved. For example, you never hear when Joe Loke says his name or something that identifies that character. Nobody can hear it. Agatha doesn't hear it. It's like there's a spell put on him. He likes very much all this witchy stuff, and he's like a fan of Agatha, and so he goes along with the coven. Like the first episode is assembling the coven, and then they go on an adventure, let's say. So the jury is still out. I enjoy watching them more or less, but it's not like thrilling. I don't know. It's like something that you kind of trust. I trust the creator of WandaVision. I trust that I'm gonna enjoy seeing Joe Loke and Catherine Hahn banter with the rest of the cast too, and I'm in for the ride. Let's see how it ends. But so far, I enjoy it enough. I'm not in love with it.
Encouraging. All right, from one comic book character to another side of the fence. It's on DC, which is the Penguin, which is a series on HBO. This is obviously Penguin from the ace villain from the Batman universe. Certainly from the Matt Reeves film, The Batman. Colin Farrell suited up in prosthetics. Returns in a kind of a crime drama, which I was a bit dubious at first, but when I watched it, it is, I must say, actually, I found it a bit phenomenal. It seems Colin Farrell, the more makeup you put on him, the more free of an actor he becomes, because it's quite a performance. James, when I watched this, it kind of reminded me. I just the one series came to mind straight away, and it was like The Sopranos. It's kind of like a on the shoulder look of a crime drama, but an ambitious individual going up the ranks. But were you surprised by this, or what were you expecting when you saw this?
Well, so I haven't seen the show yet, but I'm going to start tonight. I rewatched the Batman the other day, and I do think with that film, I know there were some people that really liked it, some people that really didn't. But when we did, I think we went back and watched all the Batman films in lockdown, didn't we? And watching them all together, it suddenly struck me that, I mean, we know he's not a superhero. This is always one of these jokes that he's a superhero, but he's not got superpowers. And when it really works, I think it's him fighting crime. You know, actually street level crime rather than intergalactical stuff. And when you look at Batman Forever, where that film just isn't about anything, it's green. That's all that film is. It's just in green. It looked amazing in 1995. It has not held up well. Jim Carrey's the best thing in the movie. It's the worst Jim Carrey film ever made, and it's terrible. And when you watch the new one, I really appreciate it with an IP. We were talking about doing it, just retreading stuff for the sake of it. It does feel, there is opportunity within IP to do something different that hasn't been done before. I know why people want to have the same thing, but if you try to make a new kind of version of the Dark Knight, it's not going to work because it's not going to be as good as the Dark Knight because we've already done it. So the idea of having him as a detective, and all the gadgets in this are very much that they've got a thing that they solve crime with. It's very strict. And the thing that I really liked in it is that the whole thing that the Riddler does is it does make sense what he's trying to do. In the original, in Batman Forever, it's literally a guy just leaving envelopes on Batman's house and going, work out this riddle. In this, he's trying to put things, spoiler for the Batman, but it's been out for 2 years, so sorry. But he's doing things that then have to be evident that will then expose corruption within the city. So he's kind of deliberately doing things where they become central to the case that then have to be put into the public domain. So it's very much sort of real world crime, and within that you have the Penguin. And I thought, oh, this would be interesting. By the end of the Batman, he's still there. I assumed he would get bumped off or something. You go, oh, maybe this would be interesting if you have this kind of mafia figure throughout the whole films, like it's a bit like The Godfather or something. So the idea of actually building him up, and I mean the prosthetics are so amazing. I mean it's a crazy look, but I kept staring at it going, that's Colin Farrell in, and you can't, it almost doesn't compute because his voice is completely different, his mannerisms, everything. So I'm interested to see how this plays out over 8 episodes. I mean, you likening it to The Sopranos is very high praise, and I think that's the way to go with this, because if you want to make Batman so it's like in Batman versus Superman, the best Batman part of that film is where he's beating up a load of thugs in a room. It's not the bits where he's fighting Superman, because it's like, well, what's this? In Justice League, he's completely ineffective until Superman turns up. Batman has to be like a street level detective. It's nice to see this done in a noir kind of crime thrillery way. So I've got high hopes. The only thing I would say is I think the something about the Batman that felt really cinematic. I don't know how this will work on streaming, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, I think this really.
Have you done both episodes so far?
I'm going to do the second episode, but just on the first episode alone, it really does evolve things that you really don't even want Batman in here. It's not. I think you've really. Yeah. It's evolved to a point where you so have transcended that series and that comic book roots that you've become basically a very fascinating portrait of a crime boss who is going up through the ranks. What you do feel is just how much sympathy you have for this character, and you actually come on his side, which is amazing. Credit to the writing and Colin Farrell, his performance. It is very much, I think I wasn't a huge fan of the Batman. I thought it was just quite a bit redundant, quite honestly, considering we've had so many irritations or versions of it before and quite recently. So was it needed? So this series, I wasn't like, okay, but it absolutely just blows everything out of the water. So I would say, then even if you don't like Batman or comics, just watch this series. It stands.
Is it a prequel then? When you say about him coming up,
no, it's not. It is a complete. It's a continuation, almost from a few days after the Batman concludes. That's what I'll say. But I just hope Batman never appears in this, because it would bring it down. That's what I'm going to say. But even if you just watch that one episode, you'll be like, wow.
I have a random question for James. One day, James, we need to have discussion to understand the plan of the Riddler in the Batman, because you said actually that it makes sense back then, but actually I never understood actually what was his plan for Dano's character in this movie.
This was a thing at the time, so I think even at the time, the first time I saw it, I thought, oh yeah, they kind of then put that on the end. So early on, there's things where he's putting things out in the public domain which are proof of city corruption, and then he just blows the dam and all that. But I think you do have to. You have to accept that if you can do a film like that, you can't actually. The thing is, if you just did that start bit, he would actually the Riddler would be the hero almost. He's doing it in a very horrible way, but he's also you would. There's also a danger that you then start going, oh well, actually this guy, So he has to do something where he's lost it at the end, and I do think as well the depiction of the thing of the Rogues Gallery and Arkham Asylum and that. Paul Dano is terrifying, and when he's just howling in a cell,
He's a good
like
actor.
he's an amazing actor, and he feels unhinged, and it's not about like doing crazy makeup or anything. It's in the performance and how nuts they are. But I'm interested to see the Penguin, and I think the Batman 2's next year, the Batman Part 2.
Yes, I mean, I think the more focus is, it seems in Matt Reeves' universe, and certainly from this series, it's the villains are the most fascinating characters because they kind of they're not this whole cartoonish kind of like no, this is definitely a crime. This is basically a story of a city and crime, and then how these characters are with their own motivations trying to survive that city and maybe change that city as well in their own. So it's almost becomes their story. So that'd be quite interesting. Seems more interesting looking from their perspective than from Batman's perspective. Anyway, definitely the Penguin is on HBO, so I would highly recommend that. Right, from cartoon villains or monsters to the more fantastical now. Series on Netflix with Jeff Goldblum is Kaos. It's the setting. It's the world of Greek gods, but more of a kind of like more sober setting. James, you saw Chaos. It's some interesting word of mouth, and Jeff Goldblum is always very watchable, but I think he's front and center of this series. What is Chaos? Just tell me a bit about the premise of those who are not familiar.
Yeah, so Chaos, it's from Charlie Covell, who wrote The End of the Effing World, which was a sort of black comedy that came out a few years ago, and there was sort of 2 series of it. I think it was on Channel 4 and Netflix internationally. And so this is the retelling of the, like you say, the Greek and Roman mythology, but it's sort of done in a modern context. The story revolves around 3 humans as they discover their common connection to a prophecy and to each other, whilst dealing with the arrogant god that is Jeff Goldblum. He is Zeus, king of the gods. He is married to Hera, queen of the gods, and his sister as well. And you have, you have that thing of Jeff Goldblum doing his Jeff Goldblum thing. So he's very charismatic and he's very funny, but he's also got sort of an arrogance about him that's more in line maybe with his role from The Fly. There's various faces that people recognize as well in the supporting cast. So Billy Piper's in this, Eddie Izzarda's in this, and there is so it sort of opens with a monument to the gods unveiled, but when they unveil the monument, it has been defaced in quite a gross way. And Jeff Goldblum is livid about this. So Jeff Goldblum wants to know why humans have started to disrespect the gods. He's Prometheus is his best friend, but he keeps him shackled up with a crow eating his liver daily, if you know that part of mythology. And he still summons Prometheus to his side, seeks his advice, and then sends him back to get his liver eaten on a daily basis again. It starts with, so basically one of the human characters dies quite early on into the series. So in episode 1, and then there becomes a thing of, can they actually get back? Can they travel back from the afterlife? It's a really fun series. Lots of comedy in it. Very sort of low on effects, so it's British and it works quite well. So there's a moment where someone is scorched and you don't really see it, so it plays off of reaction. You just see sort of fire glowing on someone's glasses as it happens, and I think with effects, there's a point now where years ago they would have gone, we need to do that, we need to show it. We know what that would look like, and it probably on a TV budget wouldn't look that great, and then we'd pick it apart. So it's more about the storytelling, and I really enjoyed all 8 episodes. Now, I've got to say, the ending, I found a real problem, and I was never into Game of Thrones, but I always used to think when people said, I love Game of Thrones, but I didn't like the ending. I was like, didn't you enjoy the show though? And it just happened to end on a downer. And with Line of Duty, I definitely feel that, although I think there was a deliberate type of ending that they wanted to do and people didn't like that. However, I was watching this and it stopped. It just stopped. It wasn't a cliffhanger. It wasn't, there was no payoff. There was no, and it's basically set up for season 2. Now, apparently season 2 might not happen. So in terms of the time that I invested, I feel like it's not been paid. It's not that they didn't give me an ending that I liked. There was no ending. There was no, and when you I mean, I keep mentioning The Boys as a high bar of TV at the moment, but like when you think of The Boys, each series has an ending that sort of is the end to that series. So series 3 of The Boys, there is a subplot involving temporary V, which is the thing that they use to sort of so that the boys are kind of injecting that and that whole thing. Series 2, there's Homelander's wife or girlfriend. That whole plot comes to an end, but you know where that there's going to be other story to tell. Here, you don't get an emotional payoff. You don't get the thing that you've come for. You just, so I think that is a problem. We just say cliffhanger like that means anything. But it was sort of my problem with Into the Spider-Verse as well, that it's really good and then it just stops. Now, in 3 years, when you can go straight into Spider-Verse 3, that won't matter. And we know that will happen. But on this, I was like, really? It's weird because if series 2 doesn't happen now, I wouldn't really recommend this.
That's the story of the life of any TV show lovers, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe this is the thing with a lot of stuff that gets cancelled. But I think there is. See, I don't know that. I think there is an art to this. That a lot of the time it happened. But the art, if you're a good showrunner and if you're writing this well, it's not a diss on Charlie Cole because he's like an amazing writer. And they probably thought that season 2 was going to happen. But I've heard a lot of showrunners say, we always give it this kind of ending. So if it doesn't come back, it works. But if it comes back, we've got something else to do. And that's that balance that you need to find. Hopefully this will find an audience and there will be season 2 and this whole rant won't matter. But it is for like I actually got to the end and I was like, oh, there's another episode there. Because it wouldn't end here. Like in the cinema sometimes you get the last scene and everybody starts to stand up because well, this makes sense. This makes sense. I've been paying attention to this story. This is where it makes sense to end this story emotionally now, and then we'll all move on. There's not going to be anything after this. And in this, I was like, oh, there's another episode, is there? Oh no, there's not. It's trying to recommend me something else now. So very, very annoying ending. But it is an interesting show, I think. It's probably worth doing a couple of episodes. And then waiting to see.
Well, after what you said, I will wait. I will wait to see if there is actually a second.
Wait to see if there's
before watching it.
But it was fun. There's a lot of a bit like when we say we speak no evil. There's a lot of darkness, but a lot of fun with it, and I think a lot of that is to do with the central performance from Jeff Goldblum. Which, although really in the last episode, he definitely oversteps the mark. So there's definitely something. The last episode where you go, okay, I know it's Jeff Goldblum, but it's okay not to like him in this because he's done something that's absolutely abhorrent. So yeah, it's fun. It's a good ensemble cast. It is a good ensemble cast, and it's a very original take as well. But yeah.
Okay. Still worth intriguing. I think I will watch it anyway, despite the long wait for a season 2 or not. But okay, well, just a couple of quick shout outs now. I think we've got a few gems that I think is worth catching. James, as we're with you recommended, or you've actually seen the series Lee. I think this is Kate Winslet, from what I understand. Can you just tell us quickly what's this about?
Yeah, so this is it's actually a film. So it's Lee Miller, who was a photographic journalist during the Second World War primarily, and has been mentioned on screen already this year in Civil War, the Alex Garland film. So this is kind of her autobiography. Opens with what appears to be a journalist sort of asking her about her life, played by Josh O'Connor. And then it sort of takes you through her sort of starts in England to becoming a war correspondent, obviously a female war correspondent at a point when that is not a thing, so she faces a lot of sort of pushback there. I think the thing in this, I mean, Kate Winslet is just amazing in this. It's a really good performance. It's maybe not the best script. There's some moments early on with her getting with her husband, which are a little bit cringe, and I don't think the performance of the husband, the sort of chemistry between the two isn't there. She has a friend who she works with, played by Andy Samberg, and I kind of had to keep pinching myself to go, that's Andy Samberg from The Lonely Island, because it's a really good straight role that he does here. It's a really good performance. And there's a few moments in it where you kind of get the impression that he probably is in love with her, and she's just not, that isn't even on her radar. She's a married woman and she's just got no feelings like that towards him whatsoever. And he has a few moments where that's all done in in just looks. There's no real dialogue to sort of to say what I've just said. It's all to do with how he reacts to things when her husband's around and stuff like that. So yeah, the war scenes are quite vivid and that. I really like the thing that happens in the final moment, which I'm obviously not going to ruin because I didn't see it coming. And a few people have taken against this, and I don't know why, because I think it's maybe it's the thing that I kind of really liked about the movie is that I've assumed that that's happening and this other thing. And I think when you think about journalism as well, there's something, I don't know, I mean, but we're talking about films here, but the idea of like a still image being captured for prosperity, you know, for eternity, and it's sort of frozen in time, and what that says, I think is quite poignant at the end. But it's quite an average biopic. If you're interested in photojournalism, it might have something in it for you. Probably the themes of photojournalism, ironically, are dealt with better in Civil War. But Kate Winslet, I think it's probably worth watching just for her performance. But yeah, it's kind of fun.
And another recommendation that's come to attention is Alfonso has one. It's Rebel Ridge. I think this is a Netflix film, from my understanding.
Yeah, it is a Netflix film, and it is actually the best action film I've seen all year. It is great. It is a great film. It starts from minute one. Aaron Pierre, who's the star, gets in trouble, and it just goes on and on and on. And in the first 30 minutes, you feel like you've seen a whole film, and there's more, and it doesn't let up. It's amazing. It's great. Aaron Pierre is, of course, a star. He's the main foe is Don Johnson, and there's also Anna Sophia Robb, James Cromwell in a short role. There's Emery Cohen also, and yeah, it's tense. It's very tense throughout the whole film. He's always is Aaron Pierre against the system, basically, and the system in this town is very strong. But Aaron Pierre has a particular set of skills too, and you totally buy it. Totally buy everything. Aaron Pierre is a British actor who probably comes from the theater like every other well-trained British actor. And this is a small town in America. And he's, an action star that's totally believable. I totally recommend Rebel Ridge. Don't sleep on it because it's totally commendable.
Good Netflix still doing these original films. I thought they were just kind of like an artifact of the COVID era, but good they're investing in these kind of things and actually gives them a chance that they don't get on the big screen.
It's better than Red Notice, then. Is it better than Red Notice?
It's better than all the Rebels and Reds and
better than Rebel Moon.
All the Rebel things in Netflix, and the
it's
Red
it's not a spin-off to Rebel Moon. Okay.
No, it's much smaller and much better.
Well, you mentioned Red Notice. When I was at the cinema recently, there was a trailer for.
I know what you're going to say.
Yes, you know what I'm going to say is
what?
The Rock.
In a Christmas movie.
Yep, which I thought was actually a kind of a fake trailer, as in the kind of like they do as a spoof, but it's probably real. It's I think The Rock saves Christmas or tries to kidnap Santa Claus, but it's real. Anyway,
you know the feeling that you got when you saw that Predator movie that was last year. What was the name of the Predator movie that was on streaming that should have been in theaters?
The fake one. No, Prey.
Prey. Exactly. Rebel Ridge feels exactly like Prey, like this.
Okay, which is good. Which is good.
Right. Well, that's a thank you, Alfonso, James, and Richard for
you.
round up the last month. Some good darker titles there. I think getting us in the mood for Halloween, which I think we'll do a special one later on. But for now, and for you at home, we'll see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TV Review.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.